I think for a long time, I thought that I never had a long-term relationship or there was some normal way to be in. And suddenly I was just at this point, I'm like 76 years old. I feel like this is how I love. 2 years, 4 years. I met somebody last summer and I fell so hard in love with this woman. And, we were only together for a week, literally. So I don't know. I just feel like intensity or all the other permutations of connection just all seem equally valuable to me.
Everybody, welcome back to the pod.
Welcome to season 4. Season 4 coming in hot.
Can you believe we've made 3 seasons of this show?
No, I literally was going to say, I can't believe it's been 3 seasons.
This is season 4 of something we're still doing, and people that we adore and really look up to are saying yes.
Are saying yes and are down to do it. I've known you for 5 years now,
Yep.
More than 5 years, 6 years. You
Yep.
have a baby. Like, it's just like, what are we talking about? What are we talking about? What is happening? I think when we started this podcast, I was starting my PhD program. I'm basically almost fucking done.
You have a baby.
I have a baby. I have a baby, exactly. I'm just like so fucking stoked for this season and for this guest that we have today.
Yes.
It just feels kind of unreal, especially when we reach out, I think, to like elders.
Yes, someone so iconic. It is so like humble and normal and cool for someone like that to be like, yeah, I'll hop on Zoom.
Yes.
And I'll record an episode of your gender podcast.
I'll just chat with you guys. I feel like the people who are still kind of interested in what younger folks are up to and what they're doing are always kind of the people like I admire so much, because I'm just like,
Yeah,
oh, you're not
totally.
interested in being this frozen in time icon who's set in your ways. Like, that's the kind of like intergenerational exchange that like I feel like I've always hoped for this podcast, and it's like happening, and it's just amazing. I wanted to ask Eileen about their haircut as soon as they came on.
That's so funny.
But I feel like I couldn't say anything until they brought it up, because I was like, oh, maybe this happened like a year ago, and it would be stupid to be like, oh, new haircut. But they were like, oh no, I cut my hair 3 days ago.
There's a kind of like this social media, it's almost like this chemtrail of yourself. People are always posting stuff and you're like, is this current? Is that your hair now? And then when you interview someone, you're like, oh, well, I must have just been seeing like older photos, or like, I don't know you at all.
Exactly. Or it's like, yeah, of course I don't personally know Eileen Myles. Like, why would I know whether or not they have gotten a haircut recently?
You should have trusted your gut.
Yeah, exactly.
We were right there. We were on the cutting edge.
I know. I should have gone for it. Obsessed with their haircut, obsessed with their like new chosen name, which like,
oh yeah,
I feel like it just all fits them so fucking well.
I am Cuthwulf Eileen Myles. I'm a poet and novelist and art journalist and trans-identified person. I live in New York and Marfa, Texas. I'm in Texas right now.
Can you tell me about Cuthwulf? Because I read your stuff. I'm a huge fan. I did not know about this.
A few years ago, I was reading a Victor Hugo novel that I really liked, a book called The Man Who Laughs, which is weirdly where the Joker and Batman comes from.
Oh,
which
interesting.
It's very strange. I mean, Victor Hugo is like my new discovery. He's amazing. And so in volume 2 of this book, there were just all these kind of tribal, medieval British princes and warlords, and the name Cuthwulf went by. And I was like, I love that name. I was like, what the fuck is that?
Hell
and
yeah.
I was like, I would love to give that to a dog. And I was like, no, I would love that name.
Yeah.
I thought I wasn't going to be like Prince and become Cuthwulf. So a friend of mine said, well, you should do the Buddhist thing, which is you put the new name first.
Totally.
And so I
love
thought
that.
Cuthwulf Eileen Myles. So it feels like a little bit of an honorific. Some of my friends call me Cuthwulf, which is fun.
Okay.
But it's totally not a requirement at all. It's just like I've amended my name a bit.
And you gave it to yourself. I love that.
Yeah. So I had a book of poetry come out in April, and I used it on that. And I'm working on a novel, and I think when the novel comes out, I'll put it on that too. And people can do what they want.
This season on the podcast, we're kind of interested in like the types of messaging that we received around gender and like our kind of communities and like families of origin.
Right.
Allie is a new parent.
Yes, I have a 10-month-old.
Wow.
He's
Amazing.
the coolest. But so I think instead of being like, here are all the ways that my parents fucked me up and like ruined me, I think we're also trying to kind of develop some empathy or like trying to understand where they were coming from now that Allie is like doing this. So that all being said, like you grew up in Arlington, Mass in the 50s. What kind of messaging do you feel like you received about gender within that context?
Well, childhood was weird because for a while you could do whatever you wanted. You know what I mean? It was just like running around with your shirt off in the summer. And then suddenly, without anything having changed, they changed. And that you started to have to dress different. And, I went to Catholic schools. And so there was a lot of division of the genders. And so like, it was like boys were on one side and girls were on the other. We didn't intermingle in the schoolyard. And the boys were running and playing and doing what I like to do. And the girls were jumping rope,
Totally.
I remember just the only thing I could do was take ends.
Oh, you would be the one, keeping the ropes, keeping time.
Yeah, because I wasn't going to jump rope, So there just was a lot of ways that you just had to physically stay on your own side of the street. My parents were different. My mother was such a mix of things because she was like a butch straight woman, I think. So she had her own weird things, like she much preferred a men's bike. Which at the time, I think by the time I was in adolescence, I was just totally paranoid about gender. So I actually wanted a girl's bike because I didn't want to look queer,
Totally.
My dad died when I was 11 and he was definitely queer and into doing drag in the house.
Oh my God.
Whoa.
And so he would have been cool with he just dubbed me. He was very supportive, 100% supportive parent, So the story would have been different if he had lived, I think.
Yeah. I'm interested in those moments like when you're a kid because, the messaging is coming down from the people above. It's like things are different now. You can't have your shirt off. That's dangerous.
Right.
But there's still kind of like, and you've written about these moments where it's just kind of like, we're at a sleepover and I'm the boy. Or, like there's still kind of like make-believe and like games and playfulness. And like, were you able to sustain off of that? Like, what was your inner life versus your outer life like? Did you live in fantasy?
Oh, I very much lived in fantasy. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think those games were sort of frustrating in a way because you still had to express desire a bit.
Yes.
There was one girl we all wanted. And you didn't want to like line up trying to get Franny. You know what I mean? So it was just, but on the other, I just remember there was a girl who was very much my girlfriend when I was, like preteen, and we would slow dance and dream of these boys, but we were together,
totally.
And she had a single mom. And so she was the good daughter who had to do housework. So like after school, I would hang out with Mary and, I was the boyfriend. So, there was a lot of facilitation of normalizing queerness.
Totally. I think you and I experience like gender failure in like a really similar way, right down to having a perm. And
so mean and evil,
brutal and stupid, and it doesn't make sense.
No,
I love that I'm the black person in the room and I never got a perm. Totally, I'm like, you know what? The tables have turned.
Is straightening the black version of perms?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh yeah, interesting. Yeah. But what is your relationship to failure? Like for me, that was so crushing. I was just, I always felt wrong, square peg, wrong hole kind of feeling. Just like, wow, so this is life, and everyone else is like figuring it out, and I didn't get the script. But I also see you as someone who has like maybe a more positive relationship to failure in general, or like a freedom out of that. Like, does that feeling follow you, or do you feel like you've like gorgeously eclipsed that kind of gender failure feeling? You feel totally free.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I just feel like I think that there was some positive perversity and things that were forced upon you and identity, I mean, I started to perform as a straight girl by junior high, you know what I mean? And it just brought me into avenues of closeness with girls that I wanted, And so there were upsides to it. In the same way that Catholic school, all the perversity of nuns was erotic in this crazy way.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
Not even without necessarily saying it's a part of my sexuality, but a lot of repression creates a fantasy.
Repression is hot.
Yeah. And, and I love women who were high femme when we were together, and since our relationship transitioned on our dudes now.
Totally.
And I know that part of what I was turned on by with them was their transness. Like, they were like my dad. They were totally in drag. And it was dirtier than being with a kind of a conventional femme, you know?
Yeah.
And so it just like, I feel like inside and out, I'm still part of what was done to me and who I became through all that, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting to me that you use non-binary pronouns. Like, there just seems to be a generational divide between people who are like, I embrace they, them, and people who are like, I am stalwart, she, her, butch, lesbian, and there's a lot of words exchanged there. Have you experienced that?
You know, I mean, I think that, again, I don't fight that hard. I will say I silently accept more she than I would like, you know, because so many people of my generation are like, Eileen is a she, and that's it. You know what I mean? And I think younger people really respond to the fact that I am they, you know, and that's really it, you know? So it just, in a way, I feel like I'm most comfortable where I'm comfortable. And it's so interesting with pronouns because I just still think that the people who call me she are really seeing the same person as the people who call me they.
I agree with that with my parents. I'm like, you know
Yeah.
what's happening. Like, you've seen me my whole life.
Yeah.
Totally.
I actually don't take it as like a misgendering kind of in an interesting way. Do you feel that way? Or are you like, oh, you are misgendering me?
No. Well, I mean, I feel like on the surface they're misgendering me, but I think that they know, and that's part of that they're being forced to make conscious what's unconscious. And they can't make that move, you know? And so again, I feel like I don't need to fight this one all the way, you know, in the grocery store and then in the, you know, with my friends, you know, but it's so important for me. You know, it's like I haven't had top surgery. I've never said this out loud, but I sort of identify as trans with tits, you know, because I can wear a binder when I need to. And other times I feel I don't have large breasts. It was never a thing, but, you know, I'm okay with my body as it is, though I'm envious of course, of all my friends who can always go topless at the beach.
Just be shirtless wherever.
Yeah,
Totally.
But I'm not making that choice, you know? I mean, I could have transitioned hard at earlier points. Like going through menopause was probably the moment that I really might have transitioned with tea. And I did fool around with tea in different ways for a while, but never in a concerted way, you know? But it was so amazing. My experience of menopause was that two things were happening. One was I wanted to be a man, and two, I wanted to fuck one. And I had not wanted to fuck one for like 30 years. I was like, why do I want to fuck a man? You know? And I kind of fooled around with the prospects, and then I just men were exactly who they had always been. So it was just like, that's not happening, you know?
So
hot in theory,
funny.
and then you face the reality, and you're just kind of like, oh,
Whoa.
I like the idea of you better than what this is.
Yeah.
That is so funny. Yeah, I've gotten close. I feel like the rigmarole with like hooking up with like on Grindr or whatever, you're just kind of like, some flag gets raised and you're like, is this really how am I going to feel right after?
Right. Yeah.
And wait, so you went through menopause in the 90s.
Yes.
If my research is correct. What was going on like way post menopause? What did it feel like with a surge of hormones all of a sudden taking over?
Great.
Yeah.
But great and confusing because I'm sober and my drug of choice was amphetamines. And the largeness I felt with tea was both fantastic, but also was a little confusing drug-wise, you know, because I kind of felt a little godly. And I remember that feeling.
Wow. Yes, totally.
You know,
how has that been navigating your sobriety? Like, do you feel like your senses have been awakened in like other places since being sober?
Oh, yeah. I mean, sex.
Yeah.
I mean, I was in my 30s when I got sober, and I certainly had sex and all kinds of sex for years, but I was suddenly so alive and so present in a way that I'd never been in my life. Because, you know, you just go through the repression of adolescence, and then you're drinking and drugging, and it was just like, wow. And certainly in terms of my sexuality, I was like, oh my God, I really am queer. I'm queer. I felt homophobic towards myself. I had to go through adolescence again, and it was remarkable.
Whoa.
So it's just I mean, sobriety, I always tell people, it's the best drug. It's the best drug of all, you know?
Wow. What made you decide to get sober, and like what was that process
Oh,
like?
I was dying. I was dying. And I was down with it. I was in my 30s and I was a poet and I had published a little bit, and my inner environment had just become completely toxic and really wasn't functional. And my perspective was dark emotionally. And there was no light. There was no way out. And so I was kind of embracing it. And then just a few accidents and friends who I never expected would make these kinds of choices had started to get sober. And I just, doors opened at the right time. And I was really lucky. And I just started to, a day at a time, not drink. And, and in community. And, and so for me, the difference really is like the collective.
The people around you. Yeah, it's kind of beautiful how your friends can be kind of like a positive. Like I have friends recently who've gotten sober, and like I just feel like so proud of them, and it makes me like want to be better in different ways too. Like there's something beautiful about like the collective venture of that.
Yeah.
You've said, I think in an interview, that you feel that Gaza is quote unquote the center of the world and that it exemplifies every struggle. And it makes me think so much about kind of June Jordan's poem where she says, I was born a Black woman and now I am become a Palestinian.
Wow.
That we are all kind of, implicated in like what's happening in Gaza. I guess I wonder, like, what role do you see, like, poetry playing kind of in our political movements when the stakes just, like, feel so dire like they do right now?
Well, I think we're invited in hard at this time. And I think that's so exciting that it seems like whenever a political movement really coalesces, it's like it both is poets and it welcomes poets. I feel like because, language is such a part of activism. Mm-hmm. And I feel like we're just organically the banner. We're making the phrases, we're making the slogan, we're saying things that you remember.
Right.
I never feel like art is not relevant in a political struggle, and certainly this one. And there's so many amazing Palestinian poets.
Yeah,
totally.
It's such a part of the culture. It's sort of like there's a line I think in Attila Adnan.
Yes.
It was like every group of Arabs is a group of poets. Yeah.
I feel like you've seen like a version of the U.S. that has changed so much over time.
Yeah.
With like gay rights, trans rights, like it's just what, if anything, has gotten easier, and how has that felt for you?
Maybe people are more sophisticated about watching what's happening. I feel like even as the shit's hitting the fan, I think the discourse about how these institutions, we were always already critiquing the media. We were already critiquing the right's ability to organize. You know what I mean? Like we've watched this one coming. I just think that what we're really seeing is the failure of the two-party system and the failure of the American Constitution. And the fact that it always had room for slavery and for
exactly.
It was born to hold things down and hold people down and hold people captive, Right. And so what's happening increasingly now is that all of us are
experiencing it.
Yeah. There's slowly very few people are going to be on the outside of this system, which really is saying no social net for anyone,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And no history and no awareness either.
Yeah, I'm curious because you post a lot about Gaza, or you kind of like intertwine it with your work. When you're talking about something, it will also mention Gaza. And I'm just curious if you're like, I'm just so sick of compartmentalizing with these big movements. And you're like, I'm just going to see what it feels like if it's just always present.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Because my feeling, I have a hard time with anybody posting something as if it's just another good day.
Right.
And I understand, because I've always used the social media for posting my shit and also politics and cheering on things that I think are great in any context, but it's just like, I hate any room where we're not talking about Palestine. It's weird. It's like in the 90s, I ran for president. And the only way I distributed myself was that I decided that every invitation would receive me as a presidential candidate. I just made it be an endurance piece for a year and a half. Memorial, like a reading about your new book, anything. I don't care. I'm just going to stand up, and at some point I'm going to turn it into a campaign op,
Right.
Because I felt like my campaign op was for you and that I was talking about the politics that won't be talked about normally. And so it just, and so I just think that it's the same. I have very few ideas, but I use them the same. I use them differently. So I just decided that if I'm going to do social media, it's always going to include Palestine. Otherwise, I can't. Once in a while, I've let a few slip through, which have interested me when I thought, why was that picture of my dog okay to like just go,
Right.
But generally, yeah, it's sort of like it's always because it's one world.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
You know?
So a lot of my family were like, organizers in the 60s and 70s. Like my aunt was a Black Panther. And so sometimes I just think about like those conditions versus now, because I feel like a lot of people have come to compare 2020 to like 68, like that kind of thing. I don't know. What do you think about kind of the conditions of like being an artist in the 70s versus now? Because like in one way in the 70s, there was this kind of like tyrannical pushback against kind of organizing and all of these things. But at the same time, like now it feels kind of different. Like it feels like, capitalism is advanced. The like police have militarized more intensely. Like, I don't know. What do you think about that? Like the conditions of being an artist making kind of politically like influenced work, like in those two different time periods.
I mean, the 70s were so bodily. It was just like we didn't have so much. We didn't have cell phones. We didn't have email. So everybody had to manifest on the physical plane what they meant and what they were saying. You know what I mean?
Oh my God, that sounds so nice.
And on the other hand, we were also ignored in a way. It was just like there was so much abandoned space. You know what I mean? There was just like,
Yes.
An old gas station would be appropriated as a performance space.
Exactly.
So there was like you could move out in secrecy, but then you could also present very loudly. And I mean, I was just in Brazil, which was an incredible experience. There was a poetry festival there. One of the most amazing things, there was a poet of my generation, Raul Zarita is his name. And he was part of the generation that like under Pinochet, they were making art. They had a group called CADA, C-A-D-A, and they just did everything. They dropped leaflets from the sky. They postered. I mean, they just did so much. And he was the poet of that group. And he read a poem called Desert of Love that was like, it was passion and it was violence. And it was just, the whole room was in tears because it was art right from a time where there was so much total oppression. And, and it's like, we're there. But it's still, it's sort of like if you're not a migrant, if you're not.
Exactly.
Yeah. But obviously, if you're protesting, you get shot in the head. It's just like incredible because nobody could believe Kent State happened when it happened, that the National Guard shot students on campus. And it was a big fucking deal.
Right.
It was horrible that it happened, but they acknowledged this was wrong. And that's what's incredible about this moment. It's just like, and I think it is about media, that it's sort of like somehow we're able to say, no, that's not true.
Yes.
Even though we have more ways to document and copy reality, we have total carte blanche to say, that's not true. That's fake news. That's made up. So there was something very naked about that earlier time.
Yeah.
We're so clothed in lies.
Exactly.
Totally.
Yeah, just like so much input that like in one way, so many people can have their voices heard, but in another way, it kind of normalizes what's happening because we're just being like inundated with all this information.
Totally. Yeah, we wanted to talk to you a little bit about the way that you talk about class. I do feel like there's something about you where you're like an intellectual and you have this kind of like blue collar upbringing, but you're so effortless about the way that you do your intellectualism that it's kind of like, it's not that hard, everybody. Calm down. Like, I don't know. You're kind of just live this like artistic life that's so beautiful that people with trust funds are able to live, but you're like, it's not, I don't know. You just do it.
Thank you. Yeah.
That's me teeing up the actual question.
Yeah. Do you feel like you still identify with a certain kind of working class ethos, even if your material conditions have maybe changed?
Yeah, because I think I still get abundant reminders that I'm an outsider and that I don't belong, and I didn't go to those schools, and I don't act like I go to those schools. And and also I think it's like Well, I don't know. I mean, there's all kinds of ways of being working class.
Right.
I remember when I was in college or high school, I remember the Boston Globe magazine section did a piece on a working class kid from Charlestown who was at Harvard. And it was
Yeah.
about what it was like to be a working class intellectual. And but it was like he was being assimilated.
Wow.
He went to the good school and he was I mean, people didn't think I should go to college. You know, it was just like I had to assert myself to get an education. And it was, of course, it changed me so radically.
Right.
But there wasn't even a sense that I should go there. So I just feel like I've been sort of making myself up all along.
It just seems like there's still kind of like a working class like outlook on the world that colors a lot of your work. Of
Yeah.
like, okay, maybe I'm not in the same state of precarity that I was when I was like 20 or 30, but I still kind of have this outlook on the world that is shaped by those experiences. Like, does that feel resonant to
I guess
you?
I guess I could. I mean, I just have a sense that I'm not supposed to be here, and
Yeah.
and because that's true, it's fun.
Yeah.
I'm not going to pass, so I like remind you why I shouldn't be here. It's sort of like, and I think people invite me to be the person who will say the wrong thing and be the loose cannon and stuff. But it still means that they, in a certain way, I mean, I remember a few years ago, I get my poems in the New Yorker, though not lately, not since Palestine, interestingly. They stopped publishing me. But I never have had prose in the New Yorker. And my thesis is that prose is empire. You could
Yeah.
kind of, a poem, we could get a little weird over here, but prose, it's this white man's language here.
That's hegemony.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I feel like it's very unlikely that they would ever, or even if they took something, they would fix it so hard.
Totally. The punctuation
And so a few years ago, the New Yorker commissioned a piece for me to take Thoreau's famous walk on Cape Cod, which is his book. Cape Cod is one of my favorite books. And it's, he's a great nonfiction writer. He's a great multi-genre, and he's queer, I believe, and that among other things. So I got this commission and I wrote the piece and they killed it. And it was so funny because it was just my writing. It was just like, they were like, you get very psychologically close to the reader and you really bring us there. And it's almost hallucinogenic and it's like right up front. And it was like, we don't do that. It was like, well, why the fuck did you invite me in the room?
Exactly. You know how I write.
So I just,
Wow.
I carry this strong awareness. And also I just like, we live with the, the bodies we grew up with, and I just think I have a relationship to, what's in the refrigerator that's different from my upper middle class, sometimes girlfriends, in terms of, do you think this is old? Go smell this, it's just like, I feel like I'm being bold when I'm like, just throw it away.
Yeah.
I come from poverty.
Yeah.
Or I come from my mother's poverty, which I don't even know about. I just felt the effects of it.
Yeah, exactly.
I think it's part of my body, class.
Yeah, totally. It's interesting that you live in Marfa. I feel like that's also kind of like, kind of outsider capital, although it's very cool and it's very loved and it's very written about. What kind of went into you deciding to live there?
I mean, economics in a big way, because I came here to they had the Lannan Foundation used to have a great residency here. Like, so they would fly you here, they would pay you $100 a day to be here. And then you would go on the local NPR radio station and get interviewed. And then you would do a reading and the whole town would come,
Oh my God,
and it
that's
was,
so cool.
it was such a good residency, And so at that time, I taught in the UC system for 5 years in the arts. And, and I had tenure the whole, and I was like, this is not my life. I can't do this. And I feel like the most punk thing I've ever done is to leave tenure. I was like,
Yeah.
but I thought, no, this is unbearable, So I had a little bit of money and I just wanted to have a house somewhere that was my own writing place. And so I was looking on the East Coast. My mother was dying at the time in Western Mass. And I thought Western Mass is so great, but I couldn't, it was too expensive, so I came here. And I just, as soon as I got here, I was like, this place is amazing. And I found a really cheap house. And it's just, for years, it's been whenever I've had money, I fix something. And it's just like, I got a shack and it's just like a perfect place.
Wow.
You can really be alone here. But also there's just enough going on. There's enough interesting people passing through. And increasingly, for some reason, it's become a real music town, which I love. You can go out and hear music most nights of the week.
Wow. Yeah, I love Marfa. I went there when there was like a really big all town eating enchiladas moment. And just any moment where everybody comes into like the town square and there's like dancing and food, I was like, wait, this place is so charmed. This is
I
crazy.
know. It's very special, and it's got deep class problems too. It's
Right.
intense,
Oh,
and
interesting.
class and race.
Yeah, totally.
I mean, Marfa does live in the past in a certain way. There's a real 50s-ishness about the place. So there's a way in which it reminds me of my childhood, which is kind of weird.
Wow. That's crazy.
The ladies
Interesting.
at the bank are so nice.
Yeah, totally. And you have a relationship and you talk with them. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I love that. You said something in your recent Apartmento interview that felt like really relatable to me, which is that you've never really gotten past that kind of 4-year mark in relationships and how you wanted your house in Marfa to be a space outside of relationships. Can you tell us a little bit more about your orientation towards romance? Like, did you intend to build a life that wasn't centered on long-term romantic relationships, or did it just kind of turn out that way?
Oh, I think the latter. It's interesting because I have 2 siblings, and my brother met his wife in his 20s, and they've been married 50 years.
Wow.
And my sister met her wife in her 40s. It was her first girlfriend, and she's still with her 20, 30 years later. So I just think they're like the marrying kind, and my mother didn't divorce my dad. He died, and then my stepfather died. Nobody leaves anybody in my family, So it's just like I'm the middle child, and so I'm of that. But I just think it's sort of built in that I almost don't get into anything that I can't see a way out,
Wow.
Certainly I've not been the one who ended relationships all the time, but I just think I always knew, no matter how fervently we were like pronouncing ourselves, that on some level it was an as if. I don't know. And yet, it's weird too. I think for a long time, I thought that I never had a long-term relationship or there was some normal way to be in. And suddenly I was just at this point, I'm like 76 years old. I feel like this is how I love.
Totally.
Yeah, exactly.
I love 2 years, 4 years, I mean, I met somebody last summer and I fell so hard in love with this woman. And, we were only together for a week, literally. And we kept in touch for several months and then it was really over. But I felt like I could really say that might have been my favorite experience of my life.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's because it was the most recent, but there was something no holds barred about how we just dug each other and thought, fuck, you're amazing. And this is so, So I don't know. I just feel like intensity or all the other permutations of connection just all seem equally valuable to me. And I think in the same way that we talk, we're talking about all kinds of open relationships and ways of being with other people. And it's sort of like in time, I feel like I've experienced something that's very particular to me, how I love.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm 28 and I literally already feel like I feel those pressures to like settle down even as a queer person, just like friends who've been in 10-year-long relationships or like, you start to feel a little bit like a freak because like you're not in a relationship. Do you feel like you are impacted by those external pressures or are you just like, oh, that has nothing to do with me and I don't care about that?
Well, both. Again, I just think a lot for me, is the fact that I was born between 2 siblings and I'm really kind of a middle figure. And I think, often when somebody proposes something of any order, like when I had a publisher for my selected poems and I remember he said, why not new and selected? And I was like, oh, no, and then I walked away and then I was like, what about new and selected? So it's just like, I have a very strong fuck no. And then I walk away. There's like, and then I almost think that's how I build. Like I was on do you know this podcast, We're Having Gay Sex?
Yes, we do.
Love it. I was on it recently. And at some point, actually, I brought it up. I think I had heard her on another show say, I mean, anybody that by the time they're, I don't know, X age or whatever, hasn't had a long-term relationship, there's something wrong with them, And I remember I kind of took that to heart. I was like, what?
Jesus Christ.
and then again, I feel like I've been saying since then about how that's not true. Or or that there's this whole other order and I am that order. And
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
each one of us are that other order. It's just like the way we do time is just how we do gender, or commitment, and that
Yes.
these are all pressures and ways of touching and then not remaining.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Or like vacating yourself for something, that doesn't really fit. I think that's really cool to be like, I won't participate in that.
I'm not doing that.
Yeah,
Right.
because at what point does it become empty? And you're
Yeah.
adhering to a form. And I was like, there's nothing radical in that,
No.
Yeah, totally. Okay, so I haven't, of all your books, I haven't read the dog one yet.
Oh, that's the best, I think.
It sits there for me like a really juicy treat that's gonna make me sob.
Oh, I love.
I know I'm gonna be in the right mood for it and it's just really gonna hit. But I am very interested in your rituals or kind of how you process grief. Was that book helpful for you in processing the grief, like with Rosie dying?
Yeah, I mean, I knew once she was dying, I knew that that's what I was going to do. When like famously when the poet Frank O'Hara died, one of his friends, the painter Larry Rivers, got up and talked about having seen Frank in the hospital the day before and what he looked like, that he was swollen, that he had tubes stuck in him, that he was like, it was just, he did a visual artist description of what his friend dying looked like. And it was very controversial. Some people thought, I mean, that's just like such a performance artist thing,
raw.
and other people were horrified and just thought that is so wrong and such a violation. But I took that to heart. And I think when Rosie was dying, I thought, I'm just going to do the most punk dog book of like, smell her shit, just like get really incontinent dog kept picking up, so, but the problem is that then she died. I mean, like, she was dying and then she was dead. And then it was like very interesting. Like, how do I keep a book going with the dog is dead now?
Totally.
And so for me, it was really exciting because it became the most experimental book I've ever written. It was like a workshop with myself. I had to keep picking up a new idea for how to write about a dead dog, But it gave me, because, the whole thing, it was like Rosie was so connected to my father's death that happened when I was 11 and I had no idea how to process a death. I had no idea.
God.
And so Rosie's death was my dad's death. The book gave me time to do both, and that was
Wow.
like such a fucking gift.
Oh my God, I'm gonna read it. Okay, fine.
I have a very old dog named Baxter who is my whole world, but I think he does make me have to think about death like almost every day. Like it crosses my mind at least every day when I look at him like, oh, you're probably going to die in the next like couple of years. It feels like you face death and grief pretty head on. Do you feel like you think about death pretty often?
Well, yeah, my own now, because I feel like my mother lived to 96. My dad now go, but so I'm physically strong but still, my friends, it's so funny. I'll get very gender specific about it, but it's like for a long time, women didn't die, men died.
Right.
I just got very used to the men in my life dying. But this year, like Fannie Howe died, Alice Notley died, and then Rose Lesniak, who was in a certain way my first lover, died. And it was just like the thing came a little closer in a way.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's just the great riddle. We all go. We don't know when and we don't know how. So yet, I think too, because I witnessed my father's death so closely that I just feel like death been up my nose for my whole life.
Yeah.
And so in a way, I just feel like I'm able to be frank now, before it was part of my imaginary,
Totally. I'm curious if you can hold it so close and not have the repulsion. Like, do you fantasize about like what your funeral would look like, or do you have these kind of like thoughts in that world that might be seen as like grotesque to other people?
I have a file in my cabinet in New York, my playlist, funeral playlist.
Incredible.
but I don't really maintain it. It's sort of like songs come and go. I wish I was as good at it as I think about it a lot. I was like, I want that song to play.
Totally.
That's really funny.
Well, that's all we have for this episode.
Now we end on death as always.
Yeah, exactly. On that happy note.
The only thing I want to say, which has nothing to do with anything, but I don't know why I want to say this, is like, I just cut all my hair off like 3 days ago.
Okay.
Yeah, I was just like, it was very funny. Several months ago, I was like, cut your hair off. And I was like, and then I crowdsourced it. I went to my friends and they were like, it's weird. You actually look more male with long hair. And it's just like, long hair is better on you. And most friends were like, and I said, okay. So I just did a little haircut, and then it came back with a strong wallop the other day, and I realized it was an interior thing, like something inside wants to cut your hair off, not outside. So I did it, and I'm very happy.
It looks great.
It looks amazing.
Well, thank you. I mean, it's very Barbara Hammer or something, just like.
I was going to ask when we came on, I was like, the signature bob is gone. I feel like that's kind of been your signature haircut for like a while.
Yeah, and like every 5 years, I cut all my hair off. It just feels like there are people who always look the same, and I'm kind of one of them, but not quite. Yeah.
You switch it up.
I think it looks sick. I think it looks awesome.
Good. Thank you.
Looks great.
I guess I brought it up for compliments.
Yeah, exactly. And you got them because it looks great.
Great. Thank you.
Gender Spiral is an original podcast from Audiation. Music is composed by Command Plus Jasmine and Chanel Critchlow. The theme song remix is by our friend Daria, aka Board Lord. The show is mixed by Matt Noble.
Cover art is by Joey Hahn, and graphics are by Michael Tyrone Delaney. The show is executive produced by myself, Allie Beardsley, my co-host Babette Thomas, and Sandy Smallins for Audiation. Our series producer is Ireland Meacham.
Huge thank you to our Patreon supporters. We couldn't make the show without you. If you're not already a member, you can go ahead and join at patreon.com/genderspiralpodcast to listen ad-free, watch video recordings of interviews and bonus video content, join our Discord community, and more.
You'll also be the first to know who we're interviewing, so you can submit questions for guests. Tiers start at just $2 a month.
On that note, thank you so much to the following patrons: Trash Hawk, Andy Muse, Dr. B, Nat Hayes,
Fiona Fleshman, B. Peets, Tilda, and Shell B, Kenna's first favorite Sprite girl.
Check us out at genderspiralpod.com, where you can find transcripts for each episode, leave us a voicemail, or shop for our merch store.
The links to our socials are in our show notes. Please follow us and subscribe on whatever podcast app you're listening to right now so you don't miss any new episodes.